Hello everyone and welcome to Who Wore It Better, where I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Before I get started with that though, I do want to say how much of an awesome experience I had this past weekend in Los Angeles. I mean, from top to bottom, everything was amazing. First off, on Saturday night, I got to take part, I had the privilege and the honor of taking part in the Something to Wrestle With live show at the Regent Theater, so I got to hang out with Bruce Pritchard and Conrad Thompson. I opened the show as Jim Cornette, and that was a ton of fun, hearing the reaction as I did my best Cornette impression. I got to introduce Conrad to the stage. I took part in the Q&A stuff where I, was the person that people came to ask questions to the hosts of the show. It was just a ton of fun being a part of that. So big thanks to Bruce and Conrad for allowing me to take part on such a cool show like that. Then Sunday afternoon was a live show with Steven Larson and Rob Fee at Meltdown Comics, Nerdist Showroom. It was a really cool, intimate experience there, talking to the fans and reviewing Tag Team. A really fun experience. I can't wait to put that video up next Thursday and show you how that went and how that was received. And then, of course, Sunday night was No Mercy, and, there was some good and there was some bad, as I discussed in the review as well. But overall, just really encapsulated a very, very entertaining weekend, very fun, very memorable. So you'll get my LA vlog and my No Mercy reactions vlog this Saturday, and then this following Thursday, a week from tomorrow, you will see my review, our review, me and Steven Larson and Rob doing our stuff, talking about Tag Team. So with that out of the way, let's get right into Raw and Smackdown. Raw begins with Miz TV. He does get one last shot in at Jason Jordan and Kurt Angle before introducing his guest for the evening, Roman Reigns, who's fresh off his victory over John Cena from No Mercy. Roman says he respects Cena now, that it's the biggest win of his career. Somehow that's bigger than The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I kind of doubt that. Roman says he doesn't know why he has to talk to an idiot like Miz. Actually, the stuff he's saying here is probably the most face-like he has sounded in what feels like months. With the right opponent and the right circumstances, I think that Roman's promos can be given good face pops, because everyone hates The Miz, and people don't like Roman, but when people talk trash about The Miz, then that guy becomes their favorite guy at certain points. So that kind of worked. And of course, The Miz was very indignant, cutting one of his kind of like work shoot promos where his hatred of the Chosen Ones. Actually, if a little sidebar, Max Landis from Wrestling Isn't Wrestling just tweeted out this huge thread today about how Miz is like the unchosen one and why his gripes with guys like Cena and Rock and Roman, why it rings so true, why it's such a good angle for The Miz, and why he's kind of an anti-hero. I cannot recommend that thread highly enough. Go look him up. It's at Up to My Knees, and look at his thread. I've retweeted it. It's a really good read. So The Miz gets mad at Roman and talks about how prestigious the IC Championship is now that he has it. Roman says, okay, let's fight. So he pretty much lays down the gauntlet right there for Miz to fight. The Miz balks, but then Kurt Angle interrupts and makes a Roman and Miz non-title match for later in the night, as well as our next match where it's the Miz Taraj, Bo and Curtis taking on Jason Jordan and Matt Hardy. It's kind of a weird tag team combination here because Jeff has a torn rotator cuff. It's going to be out for several months, which sucks. I mean, the timing could not be worse considering how bare bones the tag team scene on Raw is now. With the Hardy Boys gone, now I think it's as good a time as any to merge the two tag team divisions on Raw and SmackDown. Just make it one whole show for them. During the match, Jordan sustains battle damage on his face, but the good guys win this match after Matt hits the Twist of Fate on Bo Dallas. This match keeps the Hardys relevant even though the Jeff is hurt, and it gives Jason Jordan some of the heat back that he lost at No Mercy, losing to The Miz. However, given where this thing with The Miz is going to go later on in the night, probably not going to be fighting The Miz again anytime soon, so it's kind of an empty gesture. In a rematch from the No Mercy pre-show on Sunday, Elias takes on Apollo Crews, who's accompanied by Titus O'Neil. Apollo looks strong on the early going, but as he and Titus are celebrating on the outside, Elias kicks Titus in the leg. He kicks his leg out from under his leg. That distraction allows Apollo to get caught in the drift away for Elias to win for the second night in a row. Titus does get in the ring and gets physical with Elias, who powders and escapes. It's good to see Elias find two different ways to win over Apollo Crews. We're seeing more momentum for Elias here, and I'm wondering if this is going to be the start of something where Titus starts kind of causing Apollo to lose matches more. I mean, we've seen that before Titus Worldwide really picked up. He was kind of barking orders at Apollo, and that caused some distractions. But now we're seeing that happen again. How much is there going to, until there's like a breaking point for Apollo Crews, or will this be swept under the rug? Backstage, Finn Balor stares off into the middle distance and talks to no one in particular, thanking Bray Wyatt for pushing him to the limit at No Mercy. He has his eyes set now on the Universal Championship, but there's another golden obstacle in his way. We'll get to that in a minute. Kurt Hawkins is in the ring trying to break his his long-suffering losing streak. He makes an open challenge, and Braun Strowman, fresh off of his completely perplexing loss at No Mercy, enters the ring. He answers the challenge. Kurt runs away, but then Braun catches him in the crowd, chokeslams him to the table, which was almost botched because Kurt kind of jumped the gun there with the jump there. He then grabs Kurt and does a running power slam to him through the LED screen, which is very impressive. Strowman says he's on a path of destruction since last night, which, where was that path of destruction on Sunday, Braun? He makes a challenge to anyone who's going to fight him. Dean Ambrose comes out, one half of the Raw Tag Team Champions. They have a match, and Dean ultimately loses. He puts up a very good fight here, but the match itself wasn't that special, but I did enjoy how spontaneous and unpredictable it felt. I've harped for weeks and months how the one thing that I think WWE could benefit from is a little more of a sense of unpredictability. And I think that even though this is small and they're going to build to a match with Seth and Braun next week, is kind of like a bit of a one-upsmanship between Seth and Dean here, that I think that just moment there of Dean answering the challenge when, storyline-wise he has no reason to get involved, I think was a nice little touch by the writers. The Raw Women's Champion Alexa Bliss comes out and says that between all the talk between Sasha Banks and Bayley and what's going on between them and the impending Asuka debut, no one's focusing enough on her, damn it, the goddess, the champion and everything. She says she's laid waste to the entire women's division on Raw. Then out comes Mickie James and says, well, you haven't beaten me. Well, yeah, not this week or this month or however long it's been since you've been on television. Mickie asks Alexa to tell her to her face what she said about her on Raw Talk after No Mercy on Sunday, and then a whole bunch of age jokes get thrown back and forth. Alexa says that she doesn't want Mickie to break a hip, and Mickie says that she accomplished a lot while Alexa was still in a training bra, which she is still wearing, according to Mickie. Then finally Alexa comes out and says that you're an old lady to Mickie James. Then Mickie slaps the bejesus out of Alexa for a couple seconds. Alexa powders, so now we have our new kind of storyline in place here between the young and the old. It's a classic wrestling story being brought back here. I just hope to God that, hey, at least Alexa's not calling Mickie James fat like Laycool did. Seth Rollins taking on Sheamus in singles action here. Sheamus is accompanied by Cesaro, and the announcers spend a huge amount of time throughout the match, as well they should have, putting over Cesaro's gutsiness and grittiness over the fact that he wrestled that entire match on Sunday with this huge dental injury where his two front teeth were shoved up into his upper jaw and his gums. Like, oh, what a horrifying description and what a horrifying injury. So, hopefully Cesaro heals up and gets that surgery and gets back in the ring very soon. The match, it's good. It's a pretty decent match here. Sheamus goes for a top rope move. He's intercepted with a super kick, followed by the flying knee. Rollins wins the match. The Seth and Dean team are looking kind of half good here tonight, since Dean, even though he fought valiantly, he lost against Braun Strowman. I'm wondering who will challenge these two for the championship now. Again, with Jeff Hardy's injury and Cesaro out for an indefinite amount of time with his tooth injury, needing surgery, and the Revival's still out, like, what's happening with the tag team now on Raw? It's anemic. Roman Reigns taking on The Miz in non-title action here. Very solid match, one of my favorite matches of the night. Roman wins clean with a spear, and then soon afterward he's immediately beat up by The Miz Taraj. All three guys are just whooping on Roman. They beat him up with a chair, and then at the end, all three of them do the Shield pose. Now, like, they teased it a little bit in that Miz TV promo at the start of the show, where it's like, imagine if the Shield fought The Miz Taraj, and they teased it there, and then they do the posing there in the ring. They wouldn't tease it so hard if they weren't going to do it, actually, and actually pull the trigger on it. So this is where the Shield's going to reunite, feuding with The Miz and The Miz Taraj. Like, granted, The Miz is great. He's one of the greatest talents they have right now on the roster, but if you look at the totem pole, The Miz and The Miz Taraj cannot be possibly on the same level as a unified Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose. And who knows when they're going to pull the trigger on that? Probably leading up to Survivor Series, when I'm guessing they're going to have a reunion of the Shield, take on The Miz and The Miz Taraj at Survivor Series, and the Shield's going to go over because the Shield debuted Survivor Series all those years ago. But it just seems like such a waste. Now, I'm sure the Shield will do some more stuff over time, but is this really the best entry point to their revival and their full-fledged reunion? It seems like kind of a waste for this momentous occasion. If you want to do that, if you want to make The Miz and his group, legitimate contenders, you have to build them up for months, probably like a year, actually. Have Bo and Curtis win the tag titles a bunch of times. Have The Miz, win the World Championship or the Universal Championship. Make these guys a threat. Make it seem plausible that The Miz Taraj could compete with the Shield when they're at full capacity. Make it interesting. Otherwise, what's the point of building this up? Because you know how it's going to end. Backstage, Goldust confronted Finn Balor because he was mad that Finn called Goldust a victim in Bray Wyatt schemes. He didn't need Finn's rescuing, so Goldust attacked Finn backstage over it, and he quoted The Godfather. He's like, keep your friends close, and your enemies closer. There's a pause. Godfather 1974. Boom. Like, oh, I loved it. He's still doing the movie quotes gimmick. So he has a match here with Finn. Goldust looks good on the offense, but Finn does win in the end. Then, through the Bray creepy sound effect happening, and you hear the little girl singing Whole World in His Hands, but, you know, Bray doesn't show up. Like, oh, good. This feud apparently is not over yet. Our final match of the evening on Monday night, Emma and Nia Jax taking on Sasha Banks and Bayley in a match I feel we saw not too long ago. Wasn't this the match that they had to set up the fact they had a fatal 4-way at No Mercy, which was then later turned into a 5-way? I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, Nia's working Bayley's arm here on her shoulder, which sounds like a terrible idea, because if she's prone to, you know, being sloppy with opponents and getting them hurt, why work the body part of a worker who was injured in a match with you? Sounds like a very terrible prospect, very scary prospect. In my opinion, the faces win when Bayley hits the belly to belly onto Emma, so they get their win back. Okay, and who knows where it's going to go with Sasha and Bayley from there. After announcing that next week on Raw, Roman and Miz will be facing off in a rematch for the Intercontinental Championship, we then go to the ring for Enzo Amore's Cruiserweight Championship celebration. Very interesting what they've done here on Monday, because they spent the whole night building Enzo up in a more annoying, grating way than he normally has been, kind of needling Kurt Angle backstage, asking for demands upon demands. I want a championship celebration. I want a no contract clause where none of the other cruiserweights can touch me, or they forfeit any chance of getting a shot at the title. And then Kurt even calls him out and says, you're being annoying as hell right now. So despite this push to make him more annoying, I feel like when he comes out and cuts his promo, at first the fans are more or less positive toward him, but he puts himself over in this big, arrogant, self-centered way, says he made 205 Live relevant, which, you know, it's true, but you talking about it kind of makes you sound like a heel there. He runs down all the other cruiserweights, and then the whole 205 Live roster, including Neville, come out to confront him. Enzo says, no, you can't touch me, but Neville says, forget it. He beats up Enzo. He hits him with a red arrow after Enzo tries to escape, and the cruiserweights throw him back in the ring. So that's how the show ends. Neville hits the red arrow on Enzo to win. So what we have here is a double turn, but I feel like while Enzo's promo was definitely more grating than before and definitely more heelish, I don't think the fans were quite ready to embrace Neville as like the new hero just yet. Not on this night. Now on 205 Live on Tuesday, I read the results, and they definitely did more to solidify the double turn. Enzo being more heelish, beating up Neville with the crutch that he had like throughout the night. And so I think 205 Live put the finishing touches on something I was initially very hesitant about. Because when Neville and the cruiserweights, beat up Enzo at the end of Raw, nobody was like jumping out of their seats and hooting and hollering over the fact that this was happening. Neville was still getting booed at some points throughout that whole segment. So I was really worried about that. The whole storyline to me just smacks of smart influence. I feel like Neville's promo and like what Enzo said on Monday, they might as well lifted the whole thing directly from Twitter feeds all over the country, because there were some angry, bitter, hateful people over what happened on No Mercy on Sunday when Enzo won. They're taking this online hatred of Enzo and turning it against the fans in a way the fans want to see happen. The fans now want to see Enzo get beat up by Neville and the rest of the Cruiserweight gang. It's actually pretty damn smart on their part, but I just can't understand the legit bitterness and hatred some people have over Enzo. Like, sure, Enzo's not the best wrestler in the world, so him winning the championship seems out of place, but the Cruiserweight division was never established as like a pure wrestling division. It was just the same basic wrestling as the rest of the main roster, only smaller dudes and a couple more flips here and there. Nowhere does it say that, no characters are allowed, no gimmicks are allowed. So Enzo is like king gimmick. He's king character. That's all he really is. That's all he brings to the table. So yeah, not the best wrestler in the world, but I think he had the character to really buoy things up. That being said, I think the double turn is coming at the right time. I think Neville's done just about all he can as the top heel of the Cruiserweight division, having a stranglehold of the championship for as long as he did. I still feel like he needs work to undo the many, many, many months of heelish acts that he did while he was a champion in order to truly combat Enzo and really be the conquering hero that they seem to want him to be. My big worry is it's going to backfire, because Enzo, as long as he's still able to talk and talk the way he's been doing, he's going to get the fans to pop for his insults, as abrasive as they may be. It's the same reason that he eventually got over in the first place on NXT, just developed kind of a cult following that way. I fear, with Neville and really nobody else on the 205 Live roster able to compete with him charisma-wise, unless they turn Enzo's character into a deaf mute so they kind of loses the one thing he has going for him, I fear the experiment will fail. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this does great business for 205 Live and really drives interest toward the brand, but I don't know yet. SmackDown begins with Kevin Owens making his way to the ring and asking, "Where's Shane McMahon? Where's Poochie?" He says that he actually likes and respects Vince McMahon, but if he could do what he did to someone who he liked and respected, imagine what he would do at Hell in a Cell to someone that he didn't like or respect, like Shane. Good work by Kevin there on the mic. As brief as it was, he's interrupted by Sami Zayn, and he says Kevin has completely lost it, gone off the deep end. He cuts a great promo here. It's brief, but it's still very powerful, where he says that, basically he says, even though I'm not winning a whole lot, I'm a better person than you. I'm not doing a whole lot of justice by paraphrasing. Just go look it up and you'll see what I mean. Daniel Bryan comes out and makes a match between the two for later in the night, so you will see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn again. Baron Corbin taking on Ty Dillinger. Now, maybe I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention the last couple weeks. Maybe I'm tripping here, but is Baron Corbin coming out to new music? I just felt like I was getting used to his old new music. Anyway, AJ Styles is on commentary here. The match doesn't really go very long because Corbin, it goes to the outside, throws water in AJ's face, takes Ty and uses him like a human battering ram to take out both Ty and AJ. Baron gets back in the ring and Ty is counted out. He does not answer the 10 count. Finally, the one instance, the one circumstance in which chanting 10 during the 10 count the entire time actually applies. So Baron Corbin wins by count out, and he's just being more kind of a shit heel here, saying he wants AJ's US Championship at Hell in a Cell. It makes Corbin look more like a sleaze here. The sleazier he looks here compared to AJ and Ty, the better in my opinion. Jinder Mahal and the Singh brothers are in the ring. He does not get the full entrance he usually does, probably because of the fact that there's absolutely no fans on the hard cam side of the arena, so they can't do the 360-degree walk around when he's at the stage. I mean, I saw the pictures of the crowd and like from the audience perspective looking out the hard cams, and there's like a sea of black there. Holy crap, that is devastating to look at. And you could see they struggle through the whole show. How can we shoot in creative ways to totally ignore this one half of the arena where there's no one there? Kind of acknowledging the brouhaha that came from their promo last week, Jinder acknowledges he may have gone a little too far last week on SmackDown, but he proceeds to get the same promo he's been cutting for the last 2 weeks, showing more Shinsuke funny faces. The third one shows the funny face, but then you see the picture slowly begin to move. It's actually Shinsuke Nakamura just holding the pose. The fans actually chant Nakamura's name, which was a pretty cool moment to see like that kind of backfire on Jinder. Shinsuke cuts a promo, but you can't understand what he's saying because his fucking mouth guard's in his mouth. Then he makes his way to the ring. He beats up the Singh brothers. He hits Jinder with a Kinshasa, and that's how the thing ends. It's a great segment that makes Shinsuke look like an actual threat for once. Now, can we please have some actual build toward their match next week? I'm begging you. Let's make the go home something special. Up next, the Usos take on the Hype Bros in a match I feel like we've seen very recently between these two teams. The New Day make their entrance before the match and sit at ringside behind the barricade for some reason. I mean, there was room for chairs directly in front of the barricade where you were sitting. I don't know why you had to be behind the barricade. Seems kind of weird blocking. The match is pretty quick. Jay hits Mojo with a top rope splash to win the match. I'm pretty sure Zack Ryder never even got into the thing. And all the talk they had last week about we got to do something drastic to make changes never followed up on it. They talk about it briefly in commentary, but you don't see anything happen after the match or any kind of backstage bit here. So after that bit, after that little burial, the Usos berate the New Day after the match. Big E produces a microphone out of the bucket of popcorn, which was kind of a funny touch. Xavier says that they want to defend the tag titles inside Hell in a Cell, which makes me very excited. I will say I've been seeing the commercials they've been running for Hell in a Cell, and the one they have focusing on New Day and Usos is my favorite, just because it's you don't often see like mid card or tag team feuds really get a lot of love in promotions for pay-per-views, much less for B pay-per-views. So to have it be such a huge focus here and to really acknowledge the good these two teams have done over the last several months, I think is amazing. Showcases the biggest moments of their matches so far this year. I cannot wait for these two teams in Hell in a Cell. In my favorite segment of the night, Rusev celebrates his 9-second victory over Randy Orton the previous week with the Pride of Bulgaria celebration. And Aiden English is the MC, dressed up in a nice tuxedo. He welcomes the mayor of Plovdiv, which is Rusev's hometown in Bulgaria, but they never mention the mayor by name because it's not actually the mayor. Just for those of you keeping score, the real mayor of Plovdiv, Bulgaria's name is Ivan Totev, just in case you're wondering. Not the mayor reads a statement from a big giant scroll in Bulgarian, then in English, bestowing the key of the city of Plovdiv to Rusev, and Rusev cuts a promo saying it's his jungle now, and as Aiden's singing a song dedicated to Rusev, he's hit with an RKO from out of nowhere, from out of the frame. Randy Orton jumps in, hits the RKO on Aiden, then on Rusev to kind of end the segment standing tall. Then backstage, he basically challenges Rusev via Renee Young to a match at Hell in a Cell. Kind of a silly segment, it rings very familiar familiar to like what they did with Jinder Mahal when he won the championship several months ago with like the big Punjabi celebration. Also kind of feels very similar vibe to like when Rusev was like the adopted Russian and like the Russian lawyer, even though that this fake mayor sounded better at Bulgarian than the Russian lawyer sounded being Russian. I think it was definitely, like I said, my favorite segment of the night, just because of the silliness, the absurdity of Aiden English being the MC, wearing the tuxedo, and just the key of the city. It was just pretty funny stuff. Charlotte taking on Carmella, who's being accompanied by James Ellsworth, who's literally on a very short leash going down to the ring. He is still able to interfere on behalf of Carmella throughout the match. Pretty good match here. It's like probably the most complete match of the night in terms of like length of time they were given, having a clean finish, not being a squash, very competitive. So yeah, I think they get marks for the night for that being the case. Ultimately, Charlotte wins the match, but shortly after the victory, Natalya comes out and says that she's glad that Ric Flair is still alive so he can see Charlotte fail at Hell in a Cell. Woo! I will say I wish that they played up more on the history between these two, because they talked about it in the past when they wrestled, but like almost in kind of fleeting moments, because these two did have a huge rivalry in NXT many years ago. So for them to not play up on that here, I think is kind of interesting. It seems to be that they're focusing more on like it's for the honor and the memory and the dignity of Ric Flair, who's not dead yet, motherfuckers. His shirt tells you very clearly. And also it's almost kind of an afterthought that Natalya is the women's champion. I feel like this feud should have more oomph to it. I really hope they don't go the route of like exploiting Ric Flair's near-death experience just to get heat for this rivalry. They can kind of do that on its own. And introducing Dolph Ziggler as The Undertaker. Dolph continuing his impersonation gimmick, this time as the Dead Man. Now we know what happened to all of Undertaker's stuff that he left in the ring at the end of WrestleMania this year. Dolph is interrupted by Bobby Roode, who we haven't seen on TV for the last couple of weeks. He makes a challenge for Hell in a Cell, which Dolph accepts. Should be a good one. Can't wait to see Dolph lay down for Bobby in this one. I'm just not really interested here because I'm not into Bobby Roode as a babyface. This glorious gimmick is so counterintuitive to Bobby being a face. He needs to be a heel with this gimmick. I mean, that's what's really keeps me not interested in this match, because it's kind of a foregone conclusion Bobby's going to win, and I'm not really digging babyface glorious Bobby Roode. But how much do you want to bet Dolph's going to impersonate that gimmick next week in the go home? Main event time, Sami Zayn taking on Kevin Owens. I would make a joke about the fact that we were supposed to see the end of this rivalry last year at Battleground, but I feel by this point we're beating a dead horse in that regard. More solid action we've come to see from these two. The match ends prematurely due to ref stoppage after Kevin hits the powerbomb onto Sami onto the apron of the ring, which I don't think has ever really caused a match to stop before. I don't know why they would do it now. Kevin beats Sami up some more, wraps the chair around his head, ready to throw him into the turnbuckle a la Chris Jericho earlier this year. Shane McMahon comes out and interrupts, and then like he's storming the ring, and then Kevin throws Sami chair first into Shane. So Shane kind of inadvertently cripples Sami Zayn with a chair there. Kevin just pieces out and runs up into the crowd and everything, and they're doing a very long distance stare down as the show fades to black. I think that the Kevin Owens and Shane build is really the highlight for SmackDown in the last couple of weeks. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, Raw or SmackDown. This week, I have to go with Raw once again. Yes, I know what you're saying. Oh, damn it, Brian. Thumbs down, dislike. Well, let me explain. I feel like I've been watching the same episode of SmackDown for the last 3 weeks. If you tack on the SummerSlam build to that, more like 5 or 6. I feel like this is the repetitiveness of it all. It's really draining me. Yes, the Kevin Owens Shane build has been very fun, and I like that this week they finally paid off like 2 storylines at the same time. The Jinder making fun of Shinsuke's face, and then Dolph doing all the impressions, and Bobby Roode being the reveal where it ends there. But I feel that's sort of the trademark of SmackDown since the brand splits happened, is that we're going to take one angle and we're going to stretch it for 4 or 5 months until you're totally sick to fucking death of it, and we're going to bleed that dry until we can take it no more, and we move on to the next thing, which is only a slight variant of what we just had for the previous 5 months. And that's what we've been having constantly ever since the brand split happened, especially this year it feels like. With Raw, where things are finally turning a corner with Roman and the Cruiserweights, and the women's field is looking slightly different as we kill time for Asuka. Like, thank God it's not the same combination of 4 women. Now we've got like Mickie James being brought back. Maybe that will lead to something. Maybe it will be a 1-week thing, but at least it'll feel different and feel exciting and fresh compared to the constant carousel of, Sasha and Bayley and Nia. And, Emma was interesting. I want to see more with her. We'll see where that goes. With Braun Strowman, even though I hate how decisively he lost at No Mercy, and I have no idea what he's going to do in the weeks to come, I really enjoy what he did with Kurt Hawkins and then Dean Ambrose. I thought it was very fun and spontaneous. The double turn with Enzo and Neville, like watching that on Monday night, I was kind of like apprehensive about it. Seeing what happened on 205 Live really helped kind of confirm, okay, this is a good move. I like what they're doing here. So doing what they did though on Monday, after watching it back again, I was like, okay, this is actually a good move what they're doing here. But yeah, the thing I didn't like about Raw was just, again, they're going to waste the Shield reunion on The Miz, of all people, and then the Finn and the Bray feud just not dead yet. That's like the one thing I don't like about Raw right now, is just the constant like perpetuation of that feud. That's the one thing that really grinds my gears when it comes to Raw. But let me know what you thought about Raw and SmackDown this week in the comments section below, and don't forget to vote which show you thought was better in the gimmick in the upper right hand corner of your screen. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com, and check out Patreon.com/WrestlingWithRegret for exclusive perks and some bonus content. I'm Brian Zayn, and I'll see you next time.